Well, we had a little delay, but I'm sure it's going to be well worth the wait. So, did you have a good day? I hope you did. I had a good day. I'm alive. I'm thanking God for his blessings, and I'm just happy. I'm just happy. I'm just happy. I'm just happy. Now, I have to do a little maneuvering. I'm kind of looking a little extra color there, but I'm thinking I'm going to get it right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, grandmas and grandpas, welcome to It Is Possible Tuesdays with Sanya from Stokey. I am so happy to have you with me here today. We have a very special guest, a young lady that I've known for many, many years. And I'm so happy that I have this opportunity of talking with her today. I know you're going to be inspired by her story. I know you're going to be blessed by what she has to share with you. A very wise young lady, a one who I have admired from she was a young lady. Now she's an adult, a mother, a wife, a mother, and a professional. It is my privilege to welcome. Actually, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to remind you of something. You know, when we talk about it is possible, we always go to Jeremiah 29, verse 11, and we always remind each other that God says that he has plans for us. And not only that he has plans for us, but that he knows the plans that he has for us. And these plans are plans for good and not for disaster, to give us a future and a hope. And I'm hoping that 2023 will be the year of your future, the year of your hope, the year of positivity, the year of moving forward, the year of making things happen. It is possible. That's our focus. It is possible. And I'd like to welcome my guest at this time. And I'm hoping that you will see her. Oh, yes. Look at that lovely face. Look at that lovely. I haven't seen her in person in quite a while, but I'm so happy that my guest, Dr. Stacia Goodlet-Betty, you know, like Betty Milk? Yes. Anybody remember Betty Milk? Yes. So this is Dr. Stacia Goodlet-Betty. And I am so happy to have her with me. Dr. Stacia Goodlet-Betty, how are you?
I am good, Auntie Sanya. I am great. And you know, to me, you are Auntie Sanya, and you will always be Auntie Sanya.
I know, I know. Oh, Sasa, it is so lovely to have you. And I am going to just jump right into it. You you were in Ukraine. I'm jumping straight into that one. You were
Yeah,
in the Ukraine. Tell me
I was
why you were in. Do we say the Ukraine or Ukraine? Do we say the
just
Ukraine or
Ukraine.
just Ukraine?
Just Ukraine.
All right.
All
Now,
right.
tell
So
me, mhm,
mhm. I was
you
in
were in the
Ukraine
Ukraine.
from
When were you
2013
there?
to
Um,
2019.
why were you there?
Okay. I went there to get that DR in front of my name to become Dr. Stacia Goodlet-Betty, to become a
Oh,
medical doctor.
no, wait. You went all the way to Ukraine to become a doctor. Now tell me, are you saying that UE was not but it good enough? No, I'm not even going to start from where I normally start with everybody else. I jump in straight to the end to come back to the beginning.
My pocket couldn't manage UE. It's as simple as that.
All right. Now we're going to go back to the beginning. Now that you have told me that, tell me a little bit about who Stacia Goodlet Betty is. Where were
So,
you
Auntie
born?
Sana, but you know,
Are
Auntie
you
Sana,
hearing
you could
me?
have tell a lot of this story. You were there from the beginning.
But I need them to hear it from you.
All right. I know. All right. So I was born in Jamaica, to be
Hmm.
exact, UA Hospital, and I grew up in Portmore, St. Catherine, and I went to high school in Kingston, Women's Trust High School for Girls,
I
and
didn't want
then
to.
I went to UWI. Yes, I get caught a geese. And then I went to UE,
Now,
pursued a degree.
Stacia, before you go there, you were born in Kingston, but you grew up in Portmore. Now,
Yes.
did you go to a prep school? What was your life like as
All
a
right.
child growing up?
All right. So my life as a child, we lived in Greater Portmore. I don't know if anybody knows Greater Portmore. Matches Box House. That's exactly what it was. A family of four. My father was a taxi operator and a tailor, and a farmer at the same time. And my
Yeah.
mother now, she um, was a PCA at Kingston Public Hospital. So she was a nurse's assistant at Kingston Public Hospital. And it was hard. They made ends meet. I can never say I went to my bed hungry, or that I missed a day of school because my parents didn't find it. They pop it and they find it, and they sent my brother and I to school.
Good.
I went to school first. Went to basic school and all of that. I went to Bridgeport Basic. Then I went
Mhm.
to prep. And my parents didn't have it, but they really tried. And then it came to the point where they just couldn't afford prep school anymore for me. I went to
Mhm.
prep school up until 5th grade,
Yeah.
up until the 5th grade. And then after the 5th grade, I matched from prep to primary, because if you just can't afford it, you just
So
Nagahead was one of the
you went to Nagahead Primary, you said?
grade, yes.
Okay. The sound is fading out a little, Stacia. I'm not quite sure why, but we will keep talking, and hopefully it will sort itself out. So you went to Nagahead Primary, and
Yes.
was that where you left from to go to Woolmer's Girls?
Yes, I graduated. I passed my GSAT.
Right.
I graduated and then went to to Wolmer's Trust School,
For girls.
Wolmer's Trust High School.
Hmm. Girls. Now, what was school life like for you? Was school easy? Were you always in the top set? Was it a struggle? What was? Did you like school?
I liked school because I liked to be there with my friends.
Mm.
I liked Wolmer's. Now looking back, I wouldn't have chosen to go to any other school. Traveled very long to go to
Mhm.
school, I would say, because you have to get up early in the mornings when it's dark, try to catch a bus because we live far from school. And then not only just to live far, but the traffic. Everybody from Portmore works and goes to school in Kingston. So
Yes.
the traffic in the mornings and then to make it come back. But as a child or a teenager at the time, you just think this is the way of life. You want to go to the best schools. You don't want any, body to say, oh, you went to this school or that school. You're glad to be affiliated with the school that you're going to. So you're not worrying about the transport. As I said, my parents found the lunch money every day. I cannot say that there was a day that my parents never find it. They would have said maybe they don't have the amount that they would like to give me, but I went to school, I had lunch. As it relates to the educational part, I will say on every single report from I was a baby coming up, you would
Mhm.
hear Stacia does her work well, but she would do better if she would talk less. Now, anybody knows me, you know I am a chatterbox, all right? I'd
Yes.
say if I could speak to my younger self, I'd just say, stop getting distracted. I was very easily distracted. I
Mhm.
wasn't a class clown or anything, but I was always trying to make people around me happy, talking, giving jokes. So I was easily distracted. I was not in the top 10. I was somewhere in the middle there. I wasn't in the bottom either, but I was in the middle there cruising. So I'd say average actually,
Yeah.
going right along.
Now, let me ask you something. When you were at school, were you a prefect? Were you into sports? Were you into debating?
To be very honest, I was highly into church activities. And because I
Hmm.
was into church activities, well, when I just went to Wolmer's, I did sports day. The coach saw me and he was like, "Wow, you can run and you should try out for the track team." But then track meets are on Sabbath.
Sabbath.
A lot of the things, I was also interested in the basketball team and the volleyball team. A lot of the things are on Sabbath. So I just never bothered because I was highly into church and I was in Pathfinder and you're in this club. I was on the choir as well. So it's not that I didn't have co-curricular activity, but I didn't have it at school. I was involved at church in the co-curricular activities at church, really. So I was a part of the Kiwanis Club at one point, but it just wasn't meshing. Most of the activities, most of the things were on the Sabbath. So it's easier for me to do things in church instead. So I didn't get involved in the co-curricular activity at school.
Now, it's interesting because you made those decisions as a teenager, as a young girl, not to go to become involved in things that would cause you to have to choose between going to church and participate in those activities. What gave you that strong sense of commitment, to your faith from such an early age?
I'm going to be very honest. I knew I never ever wanted to leave the church. I always knew that about myself. And to Sana, you know that even the group of young people that started with me, a lot of them have left. But I always knew no matter what else is going on in my life, I wanted to still remain in church. However, I believe it had a lot to do with the relationship that I saw my parents have with the Lord. And their relationship and people who I looked up to at church. And church played a bigger role in my life in general. Because before high school, I was going to church. I was in Pathfinder. I was in the choir. So these came before.
Yes.
So yeah.
So the foundation had been set. And therefore, if you go back to train up a child, and so your foundation was solid on the rock.
Yes. Yes.
Lovely. So went to Wolmer's, and then you went to sixth form where?
Okay, so I went to Wolmer's, but while at Wolmer's, they said that I couldn't do two subjects that I wanted to do together. And that was because apparently classes were filled already. By the time I had put in my thing, which was the same day as everybody else, I don't know how that worked out. I said, you know what? I'm not going to make, because I've been going to Wolmer's from first to fifth form, I'm going to stay here and not do what I want to do, which was study for medicine. Anyways, and so I needed the foundation subjects, which were math, chemistry, and biology or whatever. So I went to Queen's sixth form.
The Queen.
To be honest, in Jamaica, the truth is you need a link. And my mom had a link at Queen's sixth form, and we used that link and we got over there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What was it like going from one girls' school to another school, which there was a rivalry between Queens and Wolmer's, but what was that like for you, or did that not come into play?
There was a rivalry, but it wasn't like if it was Wolmer's and St. Eustace, they were closer. I don't think it was much of it was just, oh, you went to Wolmer's, but it wasn't anything big. However, this was the first culture shock I have personally ever faced. And I bawled that whole half of that first year. Remember, I'm coming from where I know my people. These are my girls. I know everybody. You know, the compound. Then you go to a different place with a different culture. So at Wolmer's, people were not allowed to have their phones. It was a strict environment. It's like you have two railings, or you have all the blinders, and you have to just see what them put in front of you, right? It was a free and liberal environment. People had their phones. People were driving to school at Wolmer's at the time. People were not allowed to drive to school. If you could drive, it was like you're a student, be a student, right?
Yes.
And we're just different. Not start different, but for me, it was a major difference, right? And that was the first time I experienced a culture shock. And looking back now, I'm happy because since I experienced that culture shock and that change, I think it helped me to then say, I want to go to Ukraine, you know, because change was no longer taboo for me. basically.
Okay, so you went to sixth form at Queens, and the culture shock had to do with social status, um, finances, demographics. Everything was different because you are at Woolmer's. Woolmer's is closer to Crossroads. It's in Crossroads. Queens is uptown. So
Yep.
you had to navigate that.
Yeah. I remember seeing someone take their printer to school to print out their project. And I'm like, I've never seen anything like that at Walmart's, you know. Just a different, strata altogether.
Yeah. Now, you then went to UA and you didn't do medicine. What did you do at UA?
So I didn't get all ones in my kit, first of all. You need all ones in your kit. In in UK, I guess it's A levels. So go and do medicine. So I said, okay. I applied to medicine, you know, but they told me no. I was still trying. But
Of course.
And then did a major in marine biology and zoology.
Okay. Marine biology and zoology. Why that?
Because when I thought of the next best thing, I loved the marine life and I love the environment. So I thought that would have been the next best thing for me to pursue.
And so you're thinking, I'm going to use that as a stepping stone to get to medicine.
No. At this point, I'm like, I'm done. I'm going to do marine biology and zoology. That's it. Wherever the career leads, it leads. Yeah. I was not into medicine at that point.
So you got a disappointment and you said, you know what? Disappointments are there for a reason. I'm not going to allow it to hold me back. I want to be doing something in the science field. I love the water. I'm going marine biology and zoology. Let me go that way. And you did your first degree.
Yes.
What happened after the first degree?
All right. So after the first degree, couldn't get no work. Work. Just imagine you have a class, for example, and you have 200 people graduate from that field or in that field. I'll find 200 jobs.
Yes, quite competitive.
This is where the reality starts to hit me now. Say, oh, you're going to university for a thing. You have to look at the end. You have to look at, is there availability in this field?
Yes, long term.
Yes. So either way, I started working. I started to work at, so I'm done now with university and I start working. I start work at Churches Credit Union. At the time, it's now First Heritage. Then I worked at a company called DOS Limited, which was a printing company. And I also, they sold printers. So I was a salesperson there. And then I had worked, before then, I had worked at a lawyer's office for 1 month as a lawyer's assistant. And after going through these 3 major jobs, I was like, that's where I said, no, this can't work. This desk pushing thing is not for me. This paper thing, it's just not for me. So that's when I spoke to my mom. She was, oh no, wait. When my mom found out what marine biology entailed, she was like, shock. No, what are we that?
No, Stacia, tell us what aspect of it your mom was saying no about.
So she was saying, when she thought about it, she said, you're going to have to go days and do research in the ocean. Okay, we don't hear from you for days. We don't know if shark eat you, what happened out there. She's like, no. She was like, nope, I'm not. Mommy could not see beyond the shark and me in the ocean. So she was like, let us see how we can do medicine again. Let's go back on that road.
Now, Stacia, did you have student loan to pay to repay?
If I had student loan to repay, yes, I did I took student loan in for that degree.
Right. So of course you're working these 3 jobs which have nothing to do with what you studied.
Yeah, man, we are paying about the student loan same way, no?
Exactly. So that is about being, it's a necessity now. I got the degree, I have to pay for it, so I'm going to take anything that's available. But
Yes.
the spark was still there for you to go onto what your first love was.
Yes.
So
Mommy
how
kind of
did
helped me
you,
redirect.
right? Parents are beautiful when that in helping their children to align their vision with reality. So mommy said, "No, let's go back to the first love." Now you said not UE, not Canada, not
No,
America,
no, no, no,
not
no, no, no.
UK.
I did say yes. So while I was working at Churches Credit Union, I started re-studying my capes. And I said,
Yeah,
I'm going to take all of them in 1 year and get one, right? This
good.
is my goal and I'm working. So I started
Yes,
to study. The aim was to go to UE and I applied because you apply from before you get your grades.
right.
And I applied and I was working. Let me give you this one. So while I was working, right? I said, Lord, if you feel like I'm taking too long to leave this job, because I'm gonna go to study and stuff and I'm gonna do my exams, so I'm gonna leave the job. I said, if you feel like I'm taking too long to leave this job, fire me. I said that the Monday by the Thursday I was fired.
Be careful what you ask God for.
Be careful what you ask God for. And I took it. I was when I was in the office with the HR manager and the boss, he couldn't understand why I was laughing. I was in there and I was laughing because I asked God to fire me, and that's exactly what He did. He fired me. So I said, okay, I'm taking it as I'm gonna go and study. Not only that, because it was a company where I did sales, I had sold some stuff and was supposed to get some commission. And I must tell you, that commission continued me, like it sustained me until my exam. So I wasn't working, but I was still getting money from my commissions at that
Isn't
time.
God good?
He
Isn't
is
God
good.
good?
So at the time I studied, I got my capes. This was January. This was January, no, where I got fired. But in passing, I was studying at Maths Unlimited.
Ah,
In
lovely.
passing,
I used to be at Maths Unlimited.
oh nice. So in passing, a young man said to me, he was in my chemistry class at the time. You need to apply for Ukraine. Remember, I'm applying for you. Yeah, I've applied for you and I'm waiting. And I shrug him off and I say, Ukraine, no sir. This is strange. And he's like, I know somebody over there, and that's where I'm gonna go when I finish these. And I said, nah. Anyway, grades come out, all my ones, working and get all my ones. So, I could have do it before. It's just distractions, right? And I said, I don't know if he saw me again and he asked me my grade because we went and collected our grades together. And he said, with those grades, you really should apply to Ukraine. And I just applied to Ukraine. And when I saw the money, I checked it out and I saw the money. I applied to Ukraine and I got through. I saw the money and I'm like, what one US student pays for 1 year, but I'm going to pay for all of my 6 years? No,
You joking?
I'm not joking. I'm not joking. What one US student, I paid in total 25,000 US. That's that at the time, that was what US students were paying, which was 24,000 US, which was like 3 million or something per year.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, we didn't have the money. We didn't know where it was gonna come from. I sat down one day with my parents and I told them about it. And my mother said, we should do a fish fry. Mommy was always so encouraging.
I remember that fish fry.
Mommy was always so encouraging, Auntie Sonia. She's like, let's do a fish fry. This was 2013 now.
Mm-hmm.
And we did fry, and my church people came out and supported me to the max. I must tell you. And I got the money to be able to sort out my visa, and that's all it could sort out. Things were so expensive. I sorted out my visas, but I needed that. And then we figured out how to get the money to go on the plane, pay the school fee. But if I never got that idea of the fish fry and we ran with it and did that, I wouldn't have been able to get here.
Let me ask you something now. You go to Ukraine. Tell me something. Were you taught in English?
Yes, I was taught in English.
Did you have to learn the language that they spoke in the Ukraine?
Yeshna.
Hit me with it again, girl.
Right. So of course, that's what I said to you. Of course, I had to learn the language because I had to live. You have to order a taxi. You have to go and buy food. You have to walk down the street. You have to go to the doctor. You have to live. So, you know.
And of course, you had to go into the hospital, so you had to be speaking to patients and so forth, the lecturers. And
yes,
how would you, what do I call the language from the Ukraine?
All right, so there are two languages there, Ukrainian and Russian, but we were taught really Russian. Russian is also spoken there. I don't know about now after what the Russians have done or are doing, because funny enough, the other day my husband and I were at, and one of his co-workers is from Ukraine, and he was hesitating to come sit with us at the table. He's like, "No, you're at your table there," and I said, I spoke to him in Russian, and he was just flabbergasted, like, how do you know that language? How do you even, you look like somebody who speaks Russian? And then he came over, we had a whole time. So, you know, yeah, you have to learn what you can learn. I'm not
but you're able to communicate.
Yeah, and understand a lot of it, yeah.
Yeah. So now you've gone, how long is the flight to Ukraine from Jamaica?
Listen, that flight was about 15 hours. It's
so you left from Jamaica.
Hours one way, I think 13 hours one way, 10 hours back.
Okay. And was it a straight flight?
So now when I just went to Ukraine, there was no straight flight. We'd have to go to Russia, and then from Russia go to Ukraine. And a lot of times the layover is terrible, like 15 hours layover, some crazy layover. And but that has allowed me the opportunity to actually step foot in a lot of countries. So Amsterdam, as I said, Russia, I've been to Germany, Turkey. So there were a lot of opportunities there, I would say.
Yeah. So you I mean, this little girl from Portmore is all the way in Russia, which is almost like going out into the deep blue sea in the ocean.
Right?
So having gone to Ukraine, what was life like there for you as a Jamaican?
All right. So if you've never seen a banana, you're gonna look at it and say, what is that? Mm-hmm. That was yesterday. When I just went to Ukraine and I entered the train, people were just staring. They were just not used to as many Black people. But after a while, you get used to it and you realize, okay, they just don't know. I did, however, experience racism. I remember one time I was on the bus and I was on my phone, and the man was telling me to be quiet and stop talking and doesn't want to hear my voice. So you do get some sort of racism, as well as your price is higher than everybody else's price because you're a foreigner. That only happens in our place. That happens in other places too. And there were a lot of positives. What I could survive, I couldn't survive on what I got in Jamaica to pay rent, buy food. I still can go and enjoy some restaurant time with my friends. But Ukraine afforded me that. I could go to the restaurants. I could charter cabs. I could, because they also have Subway. I could do a lot. I got the money stretched really well because of the conversion rate, right?
Yeah.
It was a real good opportunity for me to experience a lot of culture. That's the first time I experienced sushi. And I like sushi from there. And I don't necessarily eat much meat now, but one of my favorite meats is oxtail. And in Ukraine, it afforded me to be able to cook at least 5 pounds. I could cook 5 pounds oxtail anytime I want. Wow. Every weekend, I'd be cooking oxtail because it's so cheap. I'd go to the shop, which is like an Arabic meat shop, and I'd tell them I'd order my oxtail fresh before the cow dead, you know. Yeah, and then you get it. So I would say to people, travel, because even Ukrainians that have traveled, they weren't staring at you. You communicate with them better because they're exposed.
Exposed.
Travel is important. You really come to a
Yes.
different world. I just you can relate when you talk to people who don't travel versus people who travel. It's such a
It makes
much
a
broader,
difference.
enlightening conversation.
Yes. Yes. So, so you went to Ukraine. You're studying in Ukraine. Did you find a church? What were you involved? What happened to
Right.
your
So
faith
when I
having traveled to
began,
the
so
Ukraine?
before I went to Ukraine, I knew I was going to be in the city of Kharkov. So I looked for an Adventist church. Looking online, I found Kharkov English Adventist church. So I'm like, what? But it wasn't really an English church. It was students who went there and they were Adventists and they formed a church, a gathering. So we would meet. So when I went there, I met up with them. It was such a nice fellowship, and we would eat lunch together, and we would meet in the church in the evenings
Mm-hmm.
and the mornings. And then the church, the morning and the evening, the morning was Russian, the evening, of course, was ours.
But
And sometimes we mixed together, and we went to other cities and sang to at other churches and stuff. So it was lovely, actually, the church
so
experience there.
your missionaries in there as well.
Basically, because all the other Adventists that would come, we try to ensure that they
You
have
had a
somewhere to go, as well as tell others, invite others to church. So yeah,
yes.
that
Okay.
was great. But that
How
was
was
the
the
first
weather?
time. That much just
Sorry.
gonna say to you. That much just listen. I am used to sandals. I don't even like shoes. I'm used to sandals and a little top and your skirt or your pants or whatever. Listen, Auntie Sonia, when I went there in the dead of winter. I was freezing. It never nice at all. I called my mother crying for the first 2 years. I cried. Every minute I call her on Skype. It was Skype at the time. We never really have the other
Yeah.
stuff. And I call her and I cried and I cried because it's just the culture shock and to adjust and the weather. And you don't want to
Yes.
leave. And it's gloomy and dark outside. You have to
Yes.
go to school. You have to go no matter what. You have to get water. You have to get your groceries. Listen, it's no
Yeah.
joke. We have it easy as it relates to the weather in our country. Truly.
Definitely. Definitely. So you spent 6 years there. But during the 6 years of studying, other things happened in your life. So tell me about the
Yes.
things that happened in your life.
So in my 5th year, first of all, I got married. And then I got pregnant after that.
Mm-hmm.
And so my first pregnancy, I had a miscarriage, and it was all the way over there, and without any family or friends. Well, without any family member, because I did have friends over there, and they really helped me through. But it was really God who helped me through a time like that, to be alone, to be in a foreign country, and to experience something like that. Yeah. Also, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted, people might be wondering, you are in Ukraine and you got married, so why isn't your husband with you? What was your husband doing at that time?
So when I entered Ukraine, in 2013, he was still in medical school. So he was studying. And then he, after that, became a doctor, was working. But he was also helping me along with my parents. So if he came to Ukraine with me, he couldn't help me because he'd be sitting and we're looking at each other. Right?
Yeah.
He was working at the time.
So you had one of the most traumatic experiences that
That had
anybody
happened to
could
me in
go
my life.
through.
Yes.
Yeah, you're newlywed, you're studying, you're far
Mhm.
from home, you're in a
Yes.
foreign country, and
Yes.
this has happened to you. Yes, you have friends, but what was it that got you through that experience, Stacia?
God. Simple. I remember one time I was laying on my bed and I was crying and I said, Jesus, I need to feel like you're holding me now. I need to feel that. I really felt as though I was enveloped in his love. God brought me through. I knew don't tell anybody this. Anybody who has ever gone through a loss, don't tell them, say, God knows best. I don't believe in that, but I rested in that. And I never wanted anybody to tell me that, by the way. I never wanted to hear it from us. I rested in it, and I knew he knew best, and I said, God, you know best. So I am holding on to you. Simple as that. It was my faith. And then something about Ukraine, because I had to stand on my own 2 feet spiritually. I realized I was leaning on my husband. Well, he was my boyfriend before. My boyfriend's spirituality as well as my parents' spirituality. When I stepped into Ukraine, that's when I had to be Stacia. I had to be me, and like there's nobody else. Not only that, when you step into a new environment, you can be whoever you want to be. You can be bad, you can be good, you can create a whole new persona. And you have to, in a new environment, find you. If you never knew, that's really what you know if you know yourself. Are you gonna adapt? Are you gonna be you no matter what? And I had to do that. And the previous years, I had been watching lots of sermons online, meaning going to church, also online church. I joined some churches online. This is before COVID, so it wasn't widespread that every church was doing that. So there were certain of our faith that I would watch all the time. Randy Skeet, Dwayne Lemon, Christopher Hudson, these were some of them. And those people kept me grounded and reading my spiritual prophecy books and my own Bible study and stuff. So that's really what built my faith and then prepared me for that time.
Yes. And but positive, wonderful, exciting things happened afterwards.
Yes. The year following, I got pregnant again. And I think because of my medical knowledge, I said, not this one, not this time. I preempted it. So when you have a miscarriage, they claim that after 2 miscarriages is when you're at risk. So I was like, I'm not going to wait until you all are going to tell me that I'm at risk. So I demanded from the doctor that, I wanted bed rest. I wanted my cervix to be stitched and all of that. And they were like, no, they didn't want to give it to me. And I was like, well, you have to give me something. And instead they gave me a pessary, which is like a circular silicone thing that goes around the cervix. That failed, by the way. That failed because let me tell you what I was doing. Because I knew myself and I was so paranoid. I kept going. I had 2 doctors that I would see, not just one. So I go one this week and I go one next week. And I go, so the one doctor is thinking I'm seeing them every 2 weeks, but I'm seeing a doctor every week. Okay? I basically, that's how we caught it because nothing could have happened without us catching it based on what I did. And my advice to mothers with that is follow your instincts. Follow your instincts. The ultrasound, I did an ultrasound because I was doing ultrasound so rapidly. They caught and they realized that this is not working out. We need to do something. And at 26 weeks, they had to give me a stitch. That's unheard of because you do stitching between 14 to 17 weeks thereabout. You might push it to 20, but you can risk losing the pregnancy. It's a stitch. You can actually burst the amniotic sac. All that, right? So, anyways, God was good. It held. And I had my child in Ukraine by myself, family members. Yeah, so
I think our listeners will be saying to themselves, listening to you, she is a strong young lady. Stacia, tell us how old you are.
I am 33 years of age. And at the time I was 29.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Look, and my audience, you won't know it, but she's a small little thing. Okay, she's a small little thing. She's not
a small again. That's a small again.
Well, but at that time you were still small, Stacia. No matter what, you're still small.
So you can imagine, I'm short. I'm not
exactly. What we see is when you're committed and when you have placed your hand in God's hands, and you allow Him to lead, then things happen, and it bolsters your faith. It anchors your faith, and it develops the relationship that you have with God. Now, I know you're the only daughter. Mommy and daddy
Um,
must have been worried at this time. How did they handle one, the fact that you are pregnant and thereby yourself?
so first of all, I didn't tell them that I was pregnant because I knew my mother picked it up. Mothers have a way that's,
They,
but she picked it up even late. Um, Even nobody knew really until I was 6 months pregnant. I wanted my pregnancy to really advance before I tell anyone because the first
yeah,
pregnancy I had told people. So that was, I said I wouldn't have done that again. And so they didn't really know. So they did stress out at the
mhm.
end, but I didn't give them the whole 9 months to stress.
Right, 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 right. Yeah. No, no, you have a boy or a girl?
I have a girl, a little Sky. Her name is Sky.
Yeah, lovely. And I remember seeing pictures of you with your tummy, with your Betty milk sign on.
Oh
Do you?
yes.
Yes. And now, started something happened in Ukraine at one point that got the whole world a little worried. I think it might have been nearby. There might have been some disruption nearby, and people were. I think it had to do with church. I remember emailing you and saying, "Are you all right?" What was happening at the time? Share that with us and how
I'm
you
gonna be
dealt with
very honest. I don't know which one you're talking about because
it.
in my first year of going to Ukraine, we had to be flown back before the school year was out because there were bombings near near us, right on the
Right.
border, and my city is on the border. So that was one time. Another time, there were some neo Nazis who were going around killing black people and national and different foreigners. And there was another time, like there were, I know there was another time when there was a revolution now, and Ukraine was like, we're gonna change all our Russian names, like on the roads and statues, and take them down. And those times we had to be in. So there were every year there was something. So even though now the world is gasping at the fact that Russia is invading Ukraine, there were like mini invasions throughout. It was every year there was something. I swear.
Yes.
You always
But
live in fear and you're hoping to finish. That's it. You're just hoping to be done. You're hoping to finish. Even people question why the Jamaicans never left or why people never left Ukraine because of this. Because it's like every year you hear say this is gonna happen. They're gonna drop bomb. You see it? No bomb. Yeah. Okay, it's the you. It's like crying wolf. But then one day the wolf finally come.
yes, yes, yes. So, all right. So you, your time in Ukraine seemed to have been quite exciting on
Exciting
the
in
personal life, in terms of the society in which you live. But through it all, you had a dream, you had a vision, you knew what you wanted to do and to achieve, and you stuck to it. And you came out, you graduated, you got the doctor before your name. Did
God
you
is good.
work in Ukraine, or did you go straight back to Jamaica and find employment?
Straight back to Jamaica.
Okay.
Straight back to Jamaica.
And was it easy for you to have found employment?
Um, it's easy. It was easier then than now. There are
Okay.
more doctors now that are coming into the system. But at the
Mhm.
time, let me tell you. So when I finished, remember I just had a newborn baby.
Right.
So I took a year and a half off. I said I'm going to. I believed in that. I believe in being home and enjoying the time with my child. People said I was crazy. You sure you're gonna get a job next year? Because we saw a massive influx of doctors coming in, right? Anyways, I
Yes.
said, I'm gonna take what I know who wants me to take this time, and I took the time, and then I got the job. So I trusted God. It was even that's another of itself a whole other testimony. But I trusted Him, and I worked. Was it easy? I had to make a lot of calls. I had to be sending emails. I had to be on top of people. Remember me? I am waiting to be called. And talking to other people that I know are in line with me. Have you heard anything yet? Things like that.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
God was faithful. He always is.
Yes. And so you and your husband are both medical doctors. Are you in
Yes.
the same specialism, or are you on different
So I just completed 2 years in Jamaica, which
Mhm.
makes me a general practitioner, fully a general practitioner. My husband, on the other hand, he came to the US and he studied internal medicine. He is an internal medicine specialist. They call it internist. He's an internist. I am a general practitioner.
Okay. So let me ask you something. How do you both juggle medicine, marriage life, married life, your faith, parenthood? How does all of that work? Because medicine is not that a sit down job. It's not just easy 9 to 5. How do you create the balance?
One of the number one things is support. You
Mm.
have good family support who can help you. For example, if I live alone with my child, I need to wash, cook, clean, do everything. But if I have a community that helps me to do those things, I can now be able to spend more time with her. We can now be able to spend more time as a family, right? So support is the biggest thing for me. And prioritizing, you have to just prioritize certain things. Your faith is non-negotiable. Um, God got you where you are, so you can't be too busy, anyways. So I wake
Fantastic.
up early in the mornings, if it's 4 or 5 o'clock, and I give him his time, I give him his time, and then I start my day. So that's how I do it, and still to exercise and still to do everything.
Mhm. Mhm.
This world today is so busy that you're gonna be things are gonna fall through the cracks,
Yes.
but you have to look at what is important, and those can't fall through the cracks. It's as simple as that.
Yes, yes, your faith is important, your family is important. It says it takes a village to raise a child, and you and your husband seem to have a strong support network for you to fall back on. And of
Yes.
course, the idea of the people that you grew up with who are still around is very important. How many of your teenage friends do you still have contact with?
I do have contact with a good amount of them. For example, you know, I'm still in contact with Leighton, Darren, DK,
Yes,
Orande, even though Orande is older than me, but Orande, um, yeah, we
yes,
still
yes,
communicate, still talk, even because I moved to Manchester, even the other
yes.
day, last year, I had a group of them came down to visit me and stuff like that. So, yeah, I still communicate with a lot of my teenage friends.
Yes, yes. You know, Stacia, I am looking at little Stacia, and I am so proud of you. And I know that our home church is proud of you. And I know your parents are proud
Let me
of
tell you
you.
something about Auntie Sanya. Let me tell you something about Auntie Sanya. When Auntie Sanya
Oh,
comes from foreign, she send one little dress for me.
can I tell people those things?
Yes, me have to tell them. She also was very integral in ensuring that you
Mm,
felt loved and welcomed. So Auntie Sanya as well, it is possible to say she makes it possible for other people. I came from
thank
a
you.
very I come from a family that, we just never had it. But she was definitely one of those persons who in the church who spoke life into you, who
Thank
would
you.
ask you and make you know that you are important, you can do it. So this is very fitting. It is possible Tuesdays. Auntie Sanya is definitely that is definitely your motto. And she was one of those who spoke life into us. So
Thank you, my darling.
thank
Thank
you
you
so
very much. Thank you very much, Stacia. I am so happy that you are where you are, and by no small meat, God definitely has held you in the palm of his hand. You indeed have been the apple of his eye. You have been blessed. I mean, I would never have ventured to go all the way to Ukraine. I mean, to just come from England to Jamaica to England was big enough for me, but you young people have taken it another step, and you are willing to take risk, and you're willing to challenge God to be there for you. And you have held on to him despite the the bumps that you have met up on in the road. I am happy that my audience have been able to hear your story. Not just Stacia, not just Stacia Goodlet, but Dr. Stacia Goodlet-Betty.
Thank you, Auntie
Indeed,
Sonia.
your life is what my program is about. There is life, there is possibility. You are a dreamer and you are a doer, and you have gone out, you have claimed the world, you have been to Ukraine and back, and you are
Yeah.
telling your story. You
Yeah.
have a couple social media platforms. Tell us about them.
Yes, so I am very passionate about health and spirituality and being able to balance both of them. So I do have, just like Auntie said, I do have a YouTube channel. It's called Stasia's Journey, and it's my first name with Journey. And I also have an Instagram, Stacia Goodlet-Betty, where I promote the same thing. So that's really it, promoting my faith and helping others with their faith and their health.
You recently, thank you very much. You recently did something on mental health, I think, and the
Yes.
stigma associated with it. What prompted you to do that?
So a part of my rotation during the hospital brought me to psychiatry. And studying the book versus actually doing the practical thing are two different things. And when I
Yeah.
met persons who work in the bank and they have a mental illness and they take their medication and they're fine, and they work in whatever other establishment and they're fine, and I'm like, so mental illness, just like any other anybody, that's, we can help, we can treat this, we can overcome it. Not only that, I believe this generation of educated young people, we're really taking on our mental health. We're not putting it under the rug anymore. It's no longer, oh, I feel this sort of way, let me ignore it. No. And I see that coming up, but we still need more momentum. We still need a greater, awareness. So when the thing is, when I see people with mental illness who were, basically put behind, and then they're really making strides, I had to say something about that because I see where being aware of your mental illness and getting treatment for it really works.
Yes. Oh, lovely. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our special guest all the way from Manchester, Jamaica, Dr. Stacia Goodlet-Betty. Thank you ever so much, Stacia, for being with us. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. Thank you
Thank you so
for
much for having
allowing
me.
us to see that as young as you are, you don't have to be afraid of the future. You don't have to be afraid of the unknown. You place it all in God's hands and He will
Yes, sir.
direct your path. Thank you very
Yeah,
much for taking the time out and spending it with us today.
you're
Ladies and
most
gentlemen, it is possible Tuesdays has been exciting, interesting, and we are back with a bang. Thank you for being with us. I want to remind you, for I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope. Ladies and gentlemen, Stacia, thank you very much. Do have a good evening and
thank you,
see you
Auntie.
next month. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Auntie Sonia.
Oh, thank you, honey.
All right.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.